Easy guys, Dom here from CDG. So after playing 50 plus hours of the Battlefield 6 beta on the PS5 across the 2 weekends, how did the game shape up for me? Was it fun? Was it frustrating? Let's talk about it. Before we jump in, I just want to add that the things that I'm discussing in this video are based on my own personal experience within the beta itself. We might have experienced different things while playing it, so your opinion could be different to mine. There's probably going to be some things that I'm going to be talking about that you're going to disagree with. Some of them might be triggering. I am a little salty on a few things within the game, which we will also discuss, but just know that we are all entitled to our own opinions. We're all very different, and that is healthy, and there is nothing wrong with that. All I ask is that if you are commenting on the video, please stay respectful and adult with your responses. So first and foremost, know that I've played pretty much all of the Battlefield games. Yes, I am old enough to have appreciated the earlier games. I don't know if that is a blessing or a curse. However, I do have my favourites, or at least up to this point. Battlefield Bad Company 2 for me was an absolute go. I played a lot of that game. But Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 were the two that I kind of really settled in with. And don't get me wrong, the early Bad Company games were still pretty decent for their time. Especially the destruction, which I think was pretty much like nothing had ever been seen in a video game before. But that's the thing that the Battlefield games did really, really well. And also that Middle Eastern setting. I think at the time I was watching a lot of the news coverage of things like the Iraq War and the war in Afghanistan. And I think the fact that they were honing in on that specific theme meant that you could really kind of relate to it. And it gave you the opportunity to be able to experience that full-on battle and warfare without actually being there. And for me, that was one of the things that I really loved about Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4, and that was being kind of immersed into those large-scale battles. So is Battlefield back to top form in this new iteration? So this time it has a single player campaign, which is going to help with multiplayer lore. So you're going to have some story elements that you're going to know why you're actually fighting, not like in Battlefield 2042, which, to be honest with you, was actually missing quite a lot of things that made a Battlefield game for me. I'm not going to go into that too much because any of you who've played a lot of the Battlefield games know the reason why Battlefield 2042 didn't really hit the spot for a lot of us. These are all things now DICE are realising, and they're now re-implementing into Battlefield 6. The single player campaign is example, the classes, the large-scale destruction, all things that were kind of missing, and they're just things that worked. So there's a saying, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And there was just things that got removed from the game that didn't need to be removed, and they're coming back, and I'm really glad to see that. I'm all for it. So the first game I jumped into on the beta weekend was Siege of Cairo, and it was playing Conquest. Just the look of that map when I first loaded in was straight away Battlefield 3 nostalgia. Just the graphics, that Middle Eastern setting with the close quarters urban combat, the destruction, the sound design, the colours and look of the HUD all really worked for me. And, you know, I was like, if they can keep this feel across all of the maps, this is going to be a real strong release. So there's definitely a mix of games going on here. Their menu looks very modern, like Battlefield 2042, but the game itself is reminiscent of the Battlefield 3 and 4 series, you know, with things like the classes and the way the guns look and just the maps in general, which is great. You know, they're taking the stronger elements from other games and putting them all into one. I mean, that's the smart thing to do, right? Take the stuff that works and, you know, tie it all together. Developers definitely have their work cut out for them nowadays though, because they're having to try and balance game design to fit with various generations of gamers. As time goes on, new generations, they grow and they start playing games, and what do they like? You know, I'm Gen X, so I'm one of the first era of gamers, and now you've got the newer gamers that, you know, love that real fast-paced action in games like Call of Duty and Fortnite as an example. And there's this battle between, like, I think Battlefield 42, they were trying to make it almost like a hero shooter, you know, with characters and various different skins and looks, you know, in terms of the cosmetics, and trying to keep those gamers that like that sort of thing happy. But then obviously the old school Battlefield crowd were like, "No, God, please, no!" Nah, mate, that's not working for me. You know, I'm not the type of gamer that wants to run around in a bunny suit with a pink gun or run around as a pop star. That's just not me. I want realism, right? So I'm looking for military simulation games, pretty much. That's kind of the thing that I like, right? And Battlefield used to be that, and it kind of lost its way a little bit. The same as, dare I say it, Call of Duty also kind of lost its way a little bit in my eyes. These aren't games that I like that much anymore because they kind of lost their way. And maybe they didn't lose their way, maybe they just kind of evolved into something that was more appealing to the kind of now crowd of gaming, you know, the current generation of young gamers as an example. But where do you, like, carve off to one specific demographic, so to speak? I don't know. When do you, like, cater to the old school crowd or the new school crowd, and how do you mix and blend the two together to keep everyone happy? You only have to look through the EA forums to see people debating the pace of the game, you know, saying, oh, it's too much like Call of Duty, where some people are saying the pace feels very much to that of Battlefield 4. And I think getting the pace and the speed of the game right is really important, because for me, playing Battlefield 3 back in the day was very slow and methodical and felt, you know, very controlled and less fast-paced. Yet if I load Battlefield 3 up now, like today on my PC, and play it, it feels like a totally different game. It's so aggressive, it's so fast-paced, and the reason being is not because the game has changed, but it's the mindset of the people playing it. You know, my mind isn't as quick as it once was when I was a whippersnapper, right? My reaction times have slowed down, and that is inherently just a part of aging. It's going to happen to all of us. Yes, even you, who's really fast on the trigger, you're going to get slow at some point, trust me. And I think that is kind of what happens. So trying to strike that balance for pacing and, you know, the speed of the game is going to be something that I think DICE are going to maybe struggle with. There might be that argument of the game feels too fast. I don't know how they could slow that down without physically making the characters move slower and, you know, feel heavier in their movement. But we could talk about this stuff all day, and we've got other things that we need to go through regarding the beta. So let's move on. So, weapons and attachments. They've got this point system in place, and it means that, you know, each attachment costs a certain amount of points. You've got like 100 total to spend, and you can choose which attachments that you're going to put on the weapons based on the points. Now, more powerful attachments, like, you know, things like extended mags and various different grips are gonna cost more. Things like suppressors are gonna cost more. So you really have to kind of gauge, you know, how you want to set up your weapon. I really like this system. I also like the options menu for customizing, which is pretty cool as well. You can see each of the attachment and, like, you know, how it affects your stats down in the right hand corner. I kind of like this. You can also, once you've changed some of the attachments, you can just press L2 to go into the firing range to be able to see how the gun handles with the improvements you've made with your new attachments. Pretty cool system and very straightforward and easy to use. There's so many different types of attachments for different weapons. There's too much to cover off in this video, but everything was there that you'd expect. Suppressors, different types of grips, extended mags, different bullet types that would, you know, give you things like headshot modifiers. Well, I say modifiers, like increased headshot damage, basically. And I also like the canted sights on the weapon as well. So with this M4 as an example, if I was to have the ×4 ACOG on the top, if I'm then in a more close quarters engagement and that scope's not really going to work for me, I can literally tilt my weapon to the side and use like a small red dot on the side, which is great. The only thing that I would like them to incorporate into the game is for me to be able to inspect my weapon while I'm in the game. Not really necessarily to look at what attachments I've got on it, but to look how much ammo I've got in my magazine. And the games like Ready or Not and other military simulators allow you to, remove your magazine and just kind of look and check how much ammo you got into it. And at the moment, it doesn't really matter because it shows you on screen how much ammo you got in your mag, right, in the HUD. But I want to play on a no HUD server, or maybe I want to play a hardcore game mode, which hopefully DICE will include, where I've got no HUD or I've got limited HUD, because what that does is it increases the immersion of the game. And in that instance, I would like to then be able to check my mag and just see how much ammo I've got left into it, like physically within the game, which adds more realism. But overall, the weapons and attachment system within the game at the moment is pretty strong, I feel. There's probably going to be a few tweaks and a few modifications they can do to it. But as it stands at the moment, I was pretty impressed with it, and I've not really got many things to say about it that are bad, to be honest with you. Which I guess is good, right? Let's talk about classes. So not only have we got the classes back that we used to have in the original Battlefield games, the ones that I mentioned earlier, we've also now got these extra training paths attached to each class, and each class has 2 distinct training paths, which enables you to choose a path that best suits your preferred play style and role within the team. It has like a progression system, and the training paths, they evolve as you contribute to like the objectives within a match and with the squad as an example. And then earning these passive stat bonuses will eventually unlock a powerful one-time use ability, and you may have noticed this while playing the game, such as like the Recon as an example got a UAV, and you may have got like a ability to be able to like restock your teammates from them just interacting with you for a short period of time. There's also things like within the Recon class, if I remember rightly, where if you headshot an enemy, they can't be revived. These are all like training path specializations that unlock as you play through the match, but once you finish the match, they reset. So basically these are kind of like round based abilities or perks that you unlock as you're playing the match, and I thought some of them were quite cool. One of them is a little bit overpowered, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit later on as we go through the classes. So there's 4 distinct classes. You've got Assault, Engineer, Support and Recon, all with their own strengths and weaknesses, but this time round they come with things like signature traits and signature gadgets. So we're going to kind of discuss some of these, talk about, how they feel playing as these classes, which ones are OP. To be honest with you, there's only one that's overpowered and unbalanced at the moment, and this is the one that made me really salty throughout the beta, and we are going to be discussing that in a minute. But let's start with the Assault class. So you can pretty much use any weapons on these classes, which is, I don't know if it's necessarily controversial or not. They used to be weapon locked back in the day, so you could only use very specific weapons on different classes. Although I do know that they are going to have a game mode where you can close off what weapons are used, so you can only use the signature weapons. An example, Assault signature weapon is obviously an assault rifle. Engineers SMGs. Support is MGs or LMGs. And Recon is sniper rifles and marksman rifles, or DMRs. Most of the game modes I was playing, though, we were just using whatever weapon we felt was working, working for you, whichever one you liked. And that was kind of how it was. But the Assault has, as I've said, the signature traits, and, well, they all have the signature traits, but signature traits on the Assault, they have soft landing, which reduces fall damage, and you don't get a movement penalty after falling. And you have an adrenaline injector, which will enhance the speed of your sprint temporarily and reduces explosive damage and provides resistance to debuffs. Also apparently makes enemy footsteps easier to hear. I don't really know how helpful that was. In the beta, I didn't really notice much difference. I did try it out. I did make sure I turned on, the different audio settings, things like war tapes and stuff to really kind of pump up the audio. And there's just so much going on, so much noise going on around you. I don't think that really made much difference personally. The assault also gives you the ability to be able to use like a second weapon slot. So Gadget 1 is a shotgun, right? Now this shotgun is absolutely broken as it stands. This was like a one-frame killer. By that what I mean is you would run into a room, there's a guy standing there, suddenly instantly you're dead. And then you see what he shot you with, and he shot you with the M87A1 shotgun, which, yeah, it's a beastly shotgun when you're using it, but not very nice to be killed with it. That one frame death, it almost felt like you were being cheated out of one-on-one confrontation within the game. Don't know if they'll balance that or if they'll keep it as it is. Yes, I know in real life shotguns are very powerful up close, but I really don't know if it needs to be a one-frame death. It just, felt very jarring. They also have the explosive gadget, which is their second gadget. This gives you the option to use either explosive or incendiary rounds in them. So the explosive does what it says on the tin. It blows stuff up. It blows holes in walls and blows holes in enemy players. And the incendiary one kind of lays down an area of effect that just kind of burns, and that's quite a good way of being able to flush campers out their little campy spots. I've seen a lot of people on the EA forum moaning about that one, saying it needs to be removed, and I personally haven't really found it too much of an issue. If you stay in the same spot after it's been fired, you will die. If you run and move, it will lessen the effect. And I also think maybe this is where the adrenaline injector comes in. It says it provides resistance to debuffs. I don't know if that kind of fire when you're on fire is classed as a debuff or not, I don't know. But either way, that's something that we can play around with. I found that the assault class felt quite well balanced, and it kind of works, what it says on the tin. It's assault, it's infantry, it's up close and personal, running and gunning. Next up was the engineer, and the engineer is pretty much the tank killer, and has the ability to be able to destroy the tanks. Its signature trait is the flak jacket, which decreases damage taken from explosives. And you also got like the repair tool to be able to repair your teammates' vehicles, which can also come in handy. But it also comes with a RPG, or you can switch that out for a surface-to-air missile launcher like a Stinger, to be able to lock on to helicopters and jets that are kind of flying around, to be able to take them down as well if you want. It also has the motion sensitive mine, which I find a much better design than the standard anti-personnel mines that were used in the previous Battlefield games, because they could be easily avoided. If the tank isn't, or the vehicle isn't driving over the mine directly, it wouldn't detonate, which means they're pretty pointless, to be honest with you. But these things are better to use because you can not only hide them away, which makes them less likely to get spotted by enemy players or the tank and get destroyed, but because they are motion sensitive, once that vehicle drives past, it activates it and it fires a projectile up in the air and targets weak spots on the vehicle. Doesn't seem to do an awful lot of damage, but if you couple that with your RPG and set up an ambush point on the map, then you can, as an engineer, even as a solo engineer, you can do a lot of damage to a tank very quickly. For me, this is really important because in previous Battlefield games, one frustration for me was just how tanky tanks were. And I know in real life tanks are pretty tanky, but there has to be some sort of gameplay balance, right? And one thing that wasn't balanced in those earlier games for me personally was how much damage the tanks could take, and the fact that once you'd nearly blown one up, which would usually take a few of you firing rockets and all sorts at them to try and destroy them, they would then just drive off very quickly, faster than you can chase them, and go and repair, and then just come back and continue their seemingly invincible onslaught. Now, within the Battlefield 6 beta, if I shot a tank from behind, which is the weak spot, I could pretty much take a tank down in maybe 3 or 4 RPGs, and you get given more than enough RPGs to be able to take down a tank. Again, something else I've seen people with mixed feelings on in the EA forums, saying that the tanks need buffing. I personally don't think they do. I think if you are a clever and good tank operator, you don't need to have anything more than what's there for you currently. You can still do a lot of damage if you are running with an engineer in the tank with you who's able to jump out and repair the tank as you're getting hit. Now, it doesn't always work if there's multiple engineers firing RPGs at a tank while you're trying to repair it, and if there's other, ground forces around you, they will take you down quite quick. But personally, I found the balance to be quite good, and the engineer is one of the classes that I personally prefer. So next up is support, and these guys are pretty much the combat medics. They have the ability to be able to revive players very quickly with the defibrillators, but they also have the signature trait Quick Revive, which kind of speeds up that whole kind of dragging someone and using the revival EpiPen or whatever you want to call it on them, which I actually think is actually a real cool addition to the game. I really like that, because there's a lot of times where there's teammates waiting in a doorway to be revived, only to find when you're trying to revive them that there's someone camping on the other side of it that just, sprays you down while you're trying to revive them. So being able to drag someone out the way after maybe you've popped a smoke down to obscure their view, and then revive them as you're dragging them to a safe spot away from gunfire, I just think is a pretty cool trait personally. And I say a trait, it is something that all players can do, but the support just does it quicker basically. The supply bag now supplies both heals and ammunition, where in previous Battlefield titles the ammo bag and med bag were separate across 2 different classes. Now they're kind of incorporated them all into one, which I really like. And the support class also has the cover that you're able to put up in place wherever you want, and you can use 2 of those, and that for me is pretty cool. If you find you are under fire and you've not got much cover, you can pretty much put up your own cover, which can sometimes really save your skin. The support class is, for me, again, it's balanced, but it's, very handy. And this is the class I'd probably run the most, purely based on the fact that I need to refill my ammo a lot. Some of that might be because of the spongy enemies within the beta due to, the latency and stuff like that. But as the game goes on, if you are lucky enough to get a streak going, you are going to run out of ammo. And I did notice there was a lot of people running support that just were not dropping their ammo bags down for the team. I don't know if that's because these are people that are new to Battlefield, don't understand it. The same as I also noticed there was a lot of people that just were not reviving people that were down. They were stood right next to down teammates, and they were not reviving them. Like, again, I don't know if that's down to them just not understanding the game mechanics or not, but that was quite frustrating, to be honest with you. And also the fact that if you're not reviving those down players on certain game modes, you're giving the enemy team a ticket. You're going to bleed tickets. So for every person that dies, you're basically giving the other enemy a point, pretty much. So you need to be reviving people as much as possible. So as soon as you see that revive symbol on one of your teammates, run over, revive them if you can, if you're safe to be able to give your team more of a chance of winning the fight. And then in the classes, last but not least, the Recon class. And this is the one that has caused me to be extra salty. Now, I've never really had an issue with the Recon class in previous Battlefield games. Yes, they sometimes could be a little irritating, a little bit like a mosquito buzzing around in your ear, because they would usually find a spot, up on top of some antenna tower somewhere or on the top of a cliff where they'd put down their respawn beacon and then just sit there and just camp and just snipe you for the whole match, right? Nothing's changed. Battlefield 6, people are still jumping out of helicopters and trying to glitch on top of mountains to shoot you. It's only now they've got all these extra tools to make them even more annoying, such as auto spot, which is the Recon signature trait. Yeah, I mean, it sounds great on the surface, doesn't it? All you've got to do is look through your scope and it automatically tags all the enemies within your field of view. Automatically for you. you don't even need to see them. So if someone is really well hidden, right, which is fair game, if they've found, a good little spot, they're well hidden, you're not having to work for spotting them for your team. The auto spot signature trait's always active. It's always going to put that big orange Dorito on them, right? So you constantly seeing Doritos running around the map. Personally, I really dislike marking. It's something that I've hated right from the first game that they incorporated it into, which I think probably was Battlefield 3. And, I just think it's really unrealistic and I don't think it's needed. I think they should have a system in the game where you just mark a location of where you've spotted an enemy, and there should be a cooldown timer on how often you can do that, just so it's not too overpowered. At the moment, everyone knows where you are all of the time. You're constantly spotted, and there's no stealth gameplay there at all. Having a suppressor on your gun makes no difference because you're just an orange blip on the map all of the time for the whole of the match. You probably get 1 or 2 kills and then you are dead. And another thing that really annoys me, and this is not just for the recon class but just in general, when you go down and you are waiting to be revived, which is a good amount of time if you're pressing and holding down square, you can just constantly keep spotting people from your downed position. That shouldn't happen. If you have been down, you shouldn't be able to spot anyone. You should be classed as unconscious. You shouldn't be able to spot people. That is something that just needs to be removed completely. The auto spot feature is just overpowered, as I've said. So those snipers that are sat on top of their cliffs, you're trying to look for where these snipers are. You're trying to look for the glint of their scope to show you where they are. But because there's so many of them, they are literally just getting that little orange ping up on you as soon as your foot sticks out of cover. It only has to be a tiny bit of your body pops out of cover and they know where you are. So straight away you're at a disadvantage, and the fact that they're using long range rifles that can kill you in one shot means you haven't got much time to deal with them. And then to make things even worse, they can now attach things to their sniper rifles such as a rangefinder, which will allow them to automatically get the range just by pressing and holding down on the directional pad of the controller. So if you are like 500 meters away thinking you've got a bit of distance from the sniper to try and figure out where he is, he's spotted you because he's got his auto spot. He can now just press down on his directional pad. He can see you're at 500 meters, bam, he's got an instant headshot on you and you're dead yet again. Frustrating as hell. But then if you do get lucky enough to kill him, he's just going to respawn using his respawn beacon in his perfect little campy spot, and he's just going to do it all over again. Now there are rumours that are going to put the deploy respawn beacon onto the assault class instead. I don't know how true that is, we'll have to wait and see. But even so, even if they do that, these guys that are playing together as friends, as a group, the recon guy's just going to ask his assault mate to put down the respawn beacon where he wants it so he can spawn in his good spot. Or the other option is the assault guy is just going to put on a sniper rifle and still be able to spawn in his camp spot. Yes, he hasn't got the auto spot trait then, fair enough, but still extremely overpowered in my opinion. And then on top of the recon class having all these wonderful tools, these overpowered tools that are just really unbalanced, they also have the UAV available to them. So remember early on I mentioned about the new specialization system, the training paths. Well, the one for the recon is a UAV. So after a certain period of time you can put a UAV on. So if you have been lucky enough to maybe be able to sneak up on one of these recon guys and you finally got to him without him spotting you with his auto spot. Yes, I know I am going to keep mentioning auto spot because it really bugs me. It's made me really salty. They're going to see you coming because they've got a UAV, and this UAV, you get it often. It happens a lot. I mean, there's no counter UAV. So I think if they're going to keep the UAV in, what they need to do is they need to give one of the classes the option to be able to have a counter UAV that actually counters the UAV. There has to be a way for you to be able to negate things like the auto spot and the UAV. There has to be something that they can implement. Personally, I would like them to remove it. It's garbage, personally, I think. Very overpowered, not very well balanced. Also on the guns, like on the scope of the guns, on the sniper rifles, they've got the ability to be able to lessen the glint from, I know, they can lessen the glint. So basically what this thing does is it makes the field of view of the glint of the scope into a smaller area. So if you're slightly to the side of the sniper and the sniper's not looking directly at you, you're not going to see the glint of their sniper rifle as easy as if you don't have that scope attachment. And that for me is just the icing on the cake. Recon is just broken for me right now. It was in the beta. It was very frustrating. So personally, what I think DICE need to do to balance this, they need to put into the game a system very similar to the game Hell Let Loose. So any of you who have played the World War II shooter Hell Let Loose know that there is a limited amount of sniper classes allowed per match, and that's 2 on each side. If you are jumping into the game and you want to snipe, you've got to basically be quick to pick the recon class. This then balances it out. I would recommend DICE to take out the auto spot feature, and if they're going to keep spotting in the game, which personally I don't think they should, but if they are going to keep spotting in the game, then there needs to be, you know, the good old-fashioned spotting that you have to use the trigger to be able to call out, you know, that you've seen an enemy. And then that enemy shouldn't be tagged. It should just be a spot in the ground of where they spotted that person. Anyway, I could like rant on and on and on about the recon class. Out of all those classes, this is the one that I feel is, yeah, the most unbalanced. So one thing that I noticed that the game doesn't have at the moment and definitely needs, and that is a server browser. They did have a custom search option that they added, which is great. So you could kind of like choose your game mode and map to search for, which is great if you've got a favorite, but not having the ability to be able to choose a server near where you live, so geographically closer to you, is a big no-no in this type of game. The reason why it's a big no-no is because having a real big ping is a real big problem. This is where you start having issues with like those BS deaths that I was having quite a few of in the beta. And you know when they're BS deaths because you're getting shot when you're already around the corner, which you could clearly see on the kill cam that the guy was around the corner. It's something that actually plagued Battlefield 4 in its early release. Things like rubber banding, things like netcode issues and tick rate are all things that need to be right in the full release of Battlefield 6. I'm hoping they're going to have this stuff like really tight on the full release, because out of all the games that I played over the 50 hours, this might shock you, I only had one game that I actually felt was good. You know, like I really felt like my bullets were connecting with people. People weren't just sponging bullets and I was dying instantly, which was happening a lot. And again, it's something else that I've seen a lot of the community talking about. It's like I'm dying instantly, I'm getting no warning that someone's shooting at me, but then when I'm shooting at someone, they're just eating the bullets. And that is down to the connection a lot of the times. Yes, there's things you can do your end to make sure that you've got a decent DNS server set up and your MTU settings are optimal and all those little things, making sure you've got a decent internet wide connection, all that sort of malarkey. It's all stuff that I've been tinkering around with for years, and it always comes down to the server connection. So having that server browser means that you can choose the server closest to you, which should give you a better experience, but obviously that doesn't fix the issues of things like the netcode and the tick rate and things like that. That's all stuff that's going to have to be done server side, and hopefully that is something that EA and DICE will have sorted for the official release of the game. So bugs, let's talk about bugs right now. To be honest with you, I was quite impressed because I didn't come across many bugs myself. I'm sure there's bugs there, and I'm sure a lot of you came across a few bugs. Things for me really that stood out though was one that was really annoying is you would suddenly take damage out of nowhere, and it definitely wasn't someone shooting at you because there was no gunshot sounds, and you are usually spawning in your, you know, safe zone of like your HQ or whatever you want to call it, and I would like spawn in at the HQ, and all of a sudden there would be the noise that I've taken damage, my screen would go red, and I would only have a little bit of health, and that just wouldn't then recover. So basically I could try and use the med pack and things like that, and nothing would happen, and that's really annoying, and that happened quite a lot within the game. Very, very frustrating. And then another one was this camera bug where suddenly the camera would stay in place and my character would be in third person running around, and it just felt really weird. It was like an out-of-body experience or something, and that was something else that happened to me quite a lot, and the only way to reset that was to die, basically. So they're the main two bugs that I came across. Obviously, there was some savage ragdolling going on, which is quite funny. Sometimes if you would like run and then jump, and just as you would jump in, if someone would shoot you and kill you, your body would fly off up into the air, and it's, yeah, quite funny. But again, I don't know if that's classed as a bug or not, but yeah, it definitely had its moments. And the same with like tanks flying off into the distance as well after they'd been blown up. Something else that was also kind of funny but could be deemed as a bug. So let's jump into a few questions I've had from some of my subscribers. So Shebeeb asked, why was the game so fun? I mean, that's wishful thinking because I hadn't even said the game was fun. I don't know if Shebeeb was playing the game and they were finding it fun. I mean, it had its moments, as I said, you know, bringing back the destruction, just real good fun. Blowing up a building with loads of enemies in the building and killing them with falling bricks never gets old and will never get old. So that for me was fun. And also I just, yeah, liked that kind of nostalgic feel of some of the maps. That was fun, and some of the weapons were really fun to use. I really enjoyed using the M417 and the M4. That kind of also rolls into Drunken's question. He asked actually a few. What was your favourite gun, class, game mode, map and vehicle from the beta? So I've already mentioned my favourite guns. My favourite class was the support class. I think I kind of mentioned that earlier, to be honest with you. Just for the fact that they've got the ability to be able to quickly revive teammates and have an ammo bag and a med bag all rolled into one with the portable cover. Pretty solid. And then a close second is the engineer, because I like to blow tanks up, and that's always good fun when an enemy tank is ravaging your team and then you can just blow it up. Pretty fun. My favourite map was Siege of Cairo, closely followed by the Gibraltar map, which I thought was pretty cool as well. There's some pretty cool destruction and urban kind of close quarters combat there too. Don't get me wrong, I don't mind some of the big open maps, but I just find that they're more geared towards people wanting to play the long range game and, you know, like the recon classes and stuff. So I prefer those close quarters urban combat, and for me, just, yeah, the Gibraltar map and the Siege of Cairo map kind of works really well for that, for my style of gameplay. And in terms of game modes, I did like Breakthrough. I like how you are constantly trying to fight against the enemy team who are trying to defend, and then once you've secured an area, it then opens up a new area of the map and they have to then defend a new area and you have to attack a new area. And on these big maps, that works really well because you're unlocking and getting to see new parts of the map that you might not have explored on some of the other game modes. And then that's closely followed by Conquest, which is just a classic game mode for me. I just like capturing those points, going and capturing another one, and then by the time you've captured that one, the enemies have captured that point you just captured, and you have to go back and capture it again. And I know it sounds monotonous, but it can be quite fun, and it can really, you know, bring up some cool engagements as well. In terms of vehicles, I didn't really use any of the vehicles. I'm not really a vehicle guy when it comes to Battlefield. I messed around in the tank a little bit and I had a little bit of fun blowing stuff up in the tank. To be honest with you, I think I had more fun in the anti-aircraft gun than I did in the actual vehicles itself, to be honest with you. That was pretty cool, taking down some enemy aircraft, but ultimately I had more fun taking down infantry. Yeah, so you can actually just use it to shoot snipers on some of the maps when they're up in the mountains, which I found quite therapeutic, to say the least. But yeah, in terms of like helicopters and jets, I didn't really fly any of those. I'll maybe spend a bit more time once the game launches to see how they feel, but I'm not really a fly boy. I'm more of a boots on the ground infantry type of player. So the video is already quite long, so we should probably try and wrap up here, to be honest with you. Let me know in the comments below how you felt the Battlefield 6 beta went for you. What were your likes and your dislikes? What would you like them to change? Are you looking forward to the Battlefield 6 launch in October? I know I am. I'm really hoping they listen to a lot of the feedback from the community and just balance the game, I guess, the best they can to try and keep everyone happy. So I'll catch you guys on another video, and thanks for watching.